I see you don't have a lifeguard here at your beach.
I'm not at the beach. This is a bathtub.
No body of water is safe without a lifeguard.
It's 2 feet deep, lady. What are you doing here?
You can relax. You're safe now. Your lifeguard is here.
Okay.
Get out of the water. There's a shark.
What? A shark?
Get out of the water.
A shark?
There's a shark in the water.
Wait a minute. There's no shark in the bathtub.
Aren't you glad you had a lifeguard here to save you?
I guess. What? Wait a minute. You should go. There's no need for you to be here.
Love this man.
I think I should stay, and I think we should have
Life like this is what your life like. Try to live the life right. People.
Hey, no, Ehor, movie for you. It isn't very Christ-like. Okay, so the thing that I actually like about that intro is like at least the last two videos that we watched were people who were saying that porn is like it tricks your brain. That fucking porn clip that we just watched. How many people mistook that for reality? Oh, there's a shark.
I would love to meet a man that dumb.
Pardon?
I would love to meet that man, I gotta say.
Yeah, no, he's a very famous porn actor. So is she, anyways. But again, John Doyle doing showing the porn, which tells me like here's the thing. John Doyle is going to tell you not to watch porn. How did he know about this clip? I mean, it could have been like memed.
I mean,
it was probably memed.
I've seen this clip, I think, on Tumblr as a meme, so...
Yeah, fair. But it's like knowing, because what did he have? He had Elsa Jean on his last thing as the thumbnail. So. Yeah, now we get his...
Really know you put your buttons like type right.
Yep, here you go.
Oh, I forgot how bad this was.
John Doyle in. Heck off, commie.
So,
hello there, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, say that, Vera?
this is a bit, like, you know, side note from the NoFap stuff, but, like, this is just, like, John Doyle hate time. He has talked about how he doesn't have kids. Did he hire actors for that intro?
Probably. Or it was his siblings? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, that intro is fucking special. That is a fucking special intro. And of course, his video is called "Stop Watching Porn." So, this is his first video on his "Porn is Bad." I guess I'm trying to think of what, like, series. He eventually collated it all into like an hour 40-minute opus, and we're not going to watch the hour 40-minute opus. He'll claim it's more chock full with scientific studies and bullshit, but like the scientific studies are not that good. But we'll just watch this 20-minute one and see where we go and try to plow through bigger chunks of it.
Gentlemen, welcome to Heck Off Commie. It's that time. We all knew this was coming. It's time for the anti-porn video. And for those unaware, there's this meme that resurfaces every year during November called No Nut November. And basically the idea is that you go through the entire month of November without climaxing. And so for most of its participants, that means that they're going to try to go for an entire month without watching porn. So figured I'd try to strike while the iron's hot, maybe throw my hat in the ring here, explain why you should stop watching porn completely. And so basically what we're going to cover is the most basic and general principles for being against it from a male perspective, the reasons for and effects of it being addicting, the impact on your sex drive, the impact on relationships, the problems within the industry itself, how and why it's used to control us. That's the most important. The case for banning it. What, you thought I'd pull punches for my small government audience? I don't think so. And finally, how to go about quitting. And
so we'll cover most of that like throughout the video, obviously. But yes, he is for banning pornography. For what it's worth.
So believe me, I know that a lot of people are going to get...
I don't think he gets into the industry stuff. I don't remember getting into the industry. Which is like, yeah, there's criticisms to be made about some of the exploitation that exists within the industry, no doubt. just interesting that I feel like he would flag that and then not get to it. Or maybe not. Well, I wonder what he thinks is the problems with the industry, because generally he doesn't tend to have much care about women. Man, Trump was so funny.
I'm just trying to find that Twitter thing, but I think I misspelled it. Can you go back like 2 seconds? I just want to see how bad his Twitter is.
Oh, John Doyle's Twitter?
Yeah.
So what, you want his ad handle?
His Twitter on the yeah. Gets there. Was
At Comrade Doyle. Yeah.
Comrade Doyle.
I don't even know if maybe he's been kicked off too. I don't know. This is an older video.
I mean, according to this, he hasn't made a tweet since January 2019, which is why I thought I misspelled it.
Yeah. So two cars found out what the Trump tweet is. It is, "Sorry, losers and haters, but my IQ is one of the highest, and you all know it. Please don't feel so stupid or insecure. It's not your fault." Okay. There we have it.
And so, believe me, I know that a lot of people are going to get very defensive about this, and you could argue that that's a symptom of their addiction. But regardless, allow me to stress that I'm not coming at this from a religious perspective. In fact, I was actually opposed to pornography before I was strongly Christian. So all of my reasons for being against pornography are entirely secular. And more importantly, I'm not talking about this for any other reason than pornography is destructive, and I want destructive things to be separated from those that I care about, which means you. And most people know that it's bad, but they don't actually think that it's harmful. Sometimes they'll try to rationalize their own use of it. That's what psychologists refer to as finding permission-granting beliefs. But here's my general theory on what happened. So pornography is...
So I just want to touch on, I do love his way of sort of like, I guess, deflecting any criticism, because any criticism that you want to level at this video, he already has like an easy thing to smack you away. Be like, oh, guess what? The reason why you're criticizing me is not because I'm wrong. It's because you're addicted. And you have an addicted personality and you're addicted to porn. And so that's why you're criticizing me. It has nothing to do with my arguments. It has nothing to do with being right or wrong. It's because you're an addict. Which is like, that's a really easy way to just shut down any and all criticism that you might have.
I shouldn't have looked up John Doyle on Twitter, because now I'm seeing quote-unquote leftists that are like in the, I guess, Sochten left crowd type of thing, and talking about how they think Nick Fuentes and John Doyle are cute and or fuckable.
Why?
And
Even if you thought that, keep that to yourself. God damn.
I hate Twitter. I hate... No more. I'm done.
Is extremely dangerous, and part of the reason for that is that the harm that it does is difficult to see on the surface. And so parents can say, hey, don't do drugs, and the kids might think of the drug addicts that they've seen on TV. Maybe they abide, maybe they don't, but at least they're aware of the risks that they're taking. But what happens when a parent says, well, hey, don't watch porn, because like on the surface it's seemingly harmless, but you know, the only reason your mom she thinks it's bad is because she thinks it's demeaning to women, which it is, but it's like that doesn't matter to most young men. Most young men can rationalize through that, like, well, I'm not personally sexist. I don't personally demean women, so what difference does it make? So your mom being against it because of her own emotional proclivities isn't a compelling enough reason for most young men. But still, no one is told the true effects that pornography can have on your brain. And the dad probably isn't going to be much help either, because internet pornography is new to him as well. He's just as addicted to it because the access that we have to it now is unprecedented throughout all of human history, and it hit me and you at the same time that it hit our dads, because the technology was introduced all at once relatively recently
a compulsive masturbator
in the timeline. And so pornography exists basically to target, exploit, and profit from our most fundamental and most vulnerable instinct, which is sexual attraction, lust, you know, whatever you want to call it. And so they want to sell you an...
So but here's the thing about the selling argument here. A lot of porn is free. Like, what are they selling you to get hooked on to, like, pay into, when a lot of people can just watch this shit for free? Oh, Tim, it does not want you to say the word honkies. Let me see if I should allow this, okay? It gets it. I get it's a kink a lot of people have that the effect of an awful person is kind of arousing. So milquetoast honkies like Doyle are sexually elevated. People should at least have the good sense to be embarrassed by that particular kink. Okay, I'll allow that. That use of honkies allowed.
An addiction and no one talks about it because of how successful they've been at it. So where our parents may have engaged in excessive drinking or drug use when they were younger, now they've stopped or perhaps just cut back. Such is rarely the case with pornography consumption for 3 reasons.
What? So like how so what? Like how does that even like I feel like his parents might have been like alcoholics or something like that and found Jesus and like got better in older age or some shit or like I don't know, there's like weird stuff going on here. It's just not
I want to know what type of Christian he is. That's the big thing that I care about.
yeah.
I feel like it might be Catholic, but like I still
Or
want to know.
Protestant, like because he said he wasn't he was secular before and became a Christian. So like I don't know. It feels like a very born again phenomenon. Looks like a pretty typical American evangelical. Yeah.
Firstly, we're the guinea pig generation. We're living through the effects of this. There's no reason to believe that there will ever be a time at which we grow out of it. Whereas with other degenerate behavior that people partake in when they're young, you know, they typically, hopefully, though not as much recently, they'll grow out of it. And such won't be the case with pornography because secondly, the harmful effects of it are not as obvious on the surface. And
So you have to argue that the things are not that obvious on the surface because you'll get into some whole argument. I think I promoted Marty Klein the last time we talked about Johnny Doyle as well. But Marty Klein is fantastic and does a lot of. He's a sexologist who actually studies sex, and he's looked at. He's like, look, we had this wonderful, beautiful experiment where in the mid to late '90s we had an influx of free, high quality porn to almost everyone who owns a computer everywhere. And then it's like, well, what does that show you about the harms of society? And it's like, you would expect if like porn was harmful in many ways, that you would show an increase of these harms. And they just don't exist. In terms of like, of violence, sexual violence, as much as like, you know, it's still a serious issue, it still gets talked about, has been on the decline since the 90s, rather than trending upwards since the 90s. Things like LGBTQ rights, these things have increased since the 90s rather than decreased. Things like sexual education has improved and gotten better, and like like all these things, all these metrics for a society that has a healthy relationship with sex have all improved since the availability of free, high quality porn on the internet. That's just the facts. And I would encourage everyone to go check out Marty Klein's work. But like none of them want to touch any of that. It's there's like these subtle hidden harms that are like harming men from becoming their true selves or some like magical bullshit.
data revealing the harmful effects is not often discussed because the people who want to control us want us addicted to pornography, as we'll discuss in a second.
Okay, so did you see that? Sorry, I got caught up in Tim trying to test the algorithm. So yes, honky flagged male ass is allowed. Honky got flagged. Yeah.
Interesting.
But notice the use of the they.
Grow out of it, and such won't be the case with pornography because secondly, the harmful effects of it are not as obvious on the surface, and the data revealing the harmful effects is not often discussed because the people who want to control us want us addicted to pornography. As
the people who want to control us want us to be addicted to pornography. Who are the people that want to control us?
Yeah.
We'll discuss in a second. And also, almost every man with internet access is regularly watching it. So we're all complicit in each other's addiction. And lastly, because there's virtually no limit to its consumption. Whereas with other vices, you know, there's only so much that you can consume. Where pornography is literally infinite. As long as you have eyes and internet access, you're good to go. And to be
yeah, but there are limits to how much masturbation one can engage with. Like, even just physical limits.
Not for John Doyle.
Just it's so much lube that there's absolutely no friction happening and no yeah. I don't. And
He's constantly drip feeding more like nutrients and like it's like a slurry that like just drip feeds into his mouth so that it gets processed by the time he's ready for the next round.
But I also want to just be like, who is just that interested in the plot lines of pornography that they can be like, you know what? I gotta watch hours of this all day ad infinitum. I need more of that bathtub shark action we got at the beginning of the video all day.
Be honest
See,
with you,
that's the only thing that he's really into.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's a great place to pause it. John Doyle's having a good time.
I'm going into this
also, I'll be
anticipating
right
the
back. I
headache
need to pee.
Okay.
because a lot of you know that I've mentioned, you know, my opposition to porn before in other videos, and I've received comments like, well, Doyle says he's against porn. Yeah, right. Okay, addict. Like, you're an addict. Like, you're literally so addicted to porn that you're projecting your addiction onto me. Like, you can't even imagine a reality in which you're not watching porn because it's such a large part of your lifestyle. So when you hear someone talk about how they're against it, you're just like, you reason that through like, there's no way anyone could actually be against it. Therefore, he's lying. Or what's the other one? Oh, wow, Doyle thinks that talking about how porn is bad will get him laid. It's like, dude, you are the one who literally cannot help himself from lusting after women. You are a slave to your own desire for women.
There's an element here in which, like, I have no problem with this line of argumentation. Like, the tact to go after him to be like, well, you probably do watch porn, so it's on you, or like whatever argument he's making here. It's like, yeah, I have every reason to take him at his word that he does not masturbate or watch porn. Sure. Cool. That's cool. I have no problem there. Well, like, I don't, like, I do find it a bit weird that he knows, he's looking, he's Googling for porn for, like, clips in his video. But beyond that, it's not that surprising at all. Because, like, he's a fucking you're shamed them. Well, I mean, there's definitely, like, yeah, but, like, I don't know. He could just, whatever. It's a bad argument. You could just take the actual points he makes. Like, I feel like the thing is that when you go after someone like that, like this, by just being like, well, you probably masturbate, well, like, he could easily deflect to this, where it's like, no point in trying to, like, catch him in some gotcha unless you get him in a, like, Ted Cruz moment where he's retweeting stepmother porn or whatever.
Control yourself. I'm sorry if I sound callous right now. I truly don't mean to. But you have to understand my frustration with this whole thing because, you know, we'll get into this in a second again. But this issue is so widespread and it's so dangerous and it's so ignored that when I try to talk about it, coming from a place of sympathy, wanting to help, wanting what's best for all of us, and then I get hate from these NPCs who just see naked girl pretty. I like naked girl pretty. Must touch pee-pee. John Doyle wants to take naked girl pretty away. Must destroy John Doyle. It's like, please, just hear me out. The reason our society...
Yes. That's it. That's why I'm mad at John. Actually, like, I don't care that John Doyle wants to take... Yes, his use of NPC there, too. Jesus. I don't care that John Doyle wants to take away Pretty Girl that I could watch and masturbate to. I care more about the fucking... The government is trying to control us with pornography. Or the people. The people. It wasn't even the government. There's some nefarious people out there that are using porn to control us. That is far more worrying to me than his prudishness.
Accepts and glorifies pornography is because they're using it to control you. They want you to be a slave to your desires. Rise above that. Transcend your most primitive desires.
It is worth noting that as far as I'm like, especially this video, there's like no fucking cuts, and it doesn't even look like he's reading a script. This is a full 20-minute on rant of him just like not even looking up notes. He's just saying it. He's saying it as he feels it. And that's a lot of energy. That is someone who stored a lot of that vital seed energy and is like ready to go, you know? What we've learned from the last two videos, there's some definite seed retention. Semen retention is occurring, and John Doyle is pumped full of those nutrients and that spiritual force.
And I do have some relief because from my experience, people on the right, which I believe is the majority of my audience, tend to be more open to new ideas and at least hearing people out. But it's like, on the other hand, a lot of people, mainly young...
I want to know why there was all of a sudden clips of Black Lives Matter. What looked like or that could have been them like at the. That must have been like the Milo Yiannopoulos stuff that people were protesting. But like, why did he
accepts and glorifies pornography is because they're using it to control you. They want you to be a slave to your desires. Rise above that. Transcend your most primitive desires. And I do have some relief because
so transcend your primitive desires, and then it's showing this footage. So is this like him trying to say like, here's your primitive desires is to set fire and smash window fronts? I mean, these desires are not primitive. They're the direct result of capitalism. He looks like dork-ass James Franco. He does kind of look like a dork-ass James Franco. If a dork-ass James Franco was also a fascist dipshit. Why would I get mad that he's anti-porn when he has no power to influence it? Unless he's arguing it's like being a vegan. We know it's transparently immoral and don't want anyone reminding us that it's optional. I think like it's because his audience, like, I don't know, if you project this idea that you want to ban pornography, then people are going to probably come at you and be like, you're an idiot. And so that's probably what he's responding to.
Because from my experience,
But again,
people on the right, which I believe is
trying
the
to
majority of my audience, tend to be
contain-
more open to new ideas and at least hearing people
trying to
out.
make you more
But it's
primitive
like, on the
by
other hand, a lot of
masturbating
people,
on the
mainly young
internet.
people, are heavily ego invested into pornography. So we'll see. But I'm going to go through every reason that I'm against pornography, starting with what I would regard as the most basic, which would be the principle of it. The principle of watching pornography is bad for you. So from the most basic biological perspective, when you're watching
Basic biological perspective. So we'll get to that in a second. But like, notice so far, it's all just a bit about people who are like mad at John Doyle for even taking on this topic. It's like, all these people are just angry because they're really just all addicts who are just fucking masturbating all the time. Yeah, there he was again. People on the right allegedly more open to new ideas. It's biologically harmful to come. Yes, it is. Oh my god. Here it comes. Why is it biologically harmful to come?
porn and partaking in other auxiliary activities, you're simulating normal sexual intercourse between a man and a woman. You are simulating a normal sexual interaction between a man and a woman. And
again, the simulation theory. We watched the fucking clip at the beginning with like the lifeguard and the shark in the bathtub and like simulating sex with a woman. That's what's happening. You got it. Simulations are bad.
Every sperm is sacred.
I think okay.
Can we watch that at the end after this video as a reward for getting through another John Doyle video?
That might be copyrighted.
normal sexual interaction
need a
between a
copyright
man and a
strike.
woman, and that is from what you are deriving pleasure. That's why you're doing it. You are simulating the natural anatomy of a woman, and you get the idea. So
You're simulating the natural anatomy of a woman. This certified has never seen a woman in his life.
Wrong. We saw one in the intro. He hired one time to kiss him on the cheek.
Or I mean, I guess is anything cylindrical like simulation for him? Like how far away from the actual thing is it still a simulation? Oh my god. Oh my god. Yes, that cut is too deep. Who's Rocco and why does he have a bustalisk? Jesus, an AI torturing anti-fappers by endlessly forcing them to come. Other people appreciate the basilisk reference. I do not. Sure, I'm here for it.
because of that, I would find it hard to argue against the assertion that normal sex is the ideal. Normal sex between a man and a woman would be the ideal scenario under the umbrella of sexual activity, and anything else is a perversion of that or a simulation of that or both. So given that, the principle of watching another...
So, oral sex is a perversion because it's a mere simulation of vaginal penetration. Handies are perverted because it's a mere simulation. Like, I love like his notion is like mere. So this is actually like, I know how we talked about the other two video we watched where they don't even get into any gay sex at all. Here he's explicitly stating that even gay sex is itself, according to John Doyle, a simulation of vaginal penetration sex, and therefore a perversion and not the real thing. It's a theory the less wrong nerds had in 2014 that if you didn't help work on AI, an AI named Rocco's Basilisk would create a simulation of you to torture in AI hell for eternity. Yeah.
Sure.
So we're going to be sexually tortured to come by robotic AI? I'm down. Cool.
The anti-fappers will be. I don't think you will be.
Yes, Nick's anal sex, according to John Doyle, is a simulation.
Well, also, like, foreplay of any sort. So you just know, like, if he is having sex, it's bad. It's not a good time.
What if he's been deeply practicing semen retention to the point of like him being very sensitive such that he accidentally gets off by the mere brush of his boxers? Is that a simulation and therefore a perversion?
Well, then he's not very successfully retaining, is he?
Is this dude Mormon? He admitted to being Christian, although he claims that these arguments he came up with when he was secular. So I believe in the simulation hypothesis. Fucking in the butt is just a simulation of making babies with my trash wife. How dare you pervert it?
Man watching a man that is not you act out what you would be doing in your ideal scenario, which would be having actual sex with an actual woman, that's not good. First of all, you're acting like a cuck because you're sexually pleasuring yourself to what another man is doing to a woman, what you would prefer to be doing to a woman, but instead you're basically just stimulating yourself to his scraps, frankly. You also end up putting women...
Oh my god, my headphones knocked red. That was a take so hard that it knocked the headphones off my head. What? You're being cucked by watching porn. Who would have known? That's oh my god. And then to refer to the porn actress as being your scrap. This is like, again, where the misogyny starts to creep in a little bit. Certified normal. Jesus Christ. But again, like, this is also where like the guilt and shit like creeps in. Like, why he said he was gonna have like these robust arguments. Why do any of these arguments matter? Like, let's even like take it at face value that like you're cucking yourself by watching porn. Who cares? Why does that matter? Or let's say the simulation theory. Why does that matter? Let's just say let's just say this really is a simulation of female anatomy. Let's just say that. Who cares? Why does that matter at all? Where's the argument? Joke's on him. You're not a cuck if you're imagining the hot guy was fucking you. True.
Got him.
women on a pedestal through doing that. And I know this isn't all men who watch porn, but a lot of men watch porn as an alternative to being sexually active with real women. We've seen the proportion of young men that are not having sex at a record high. And, you know, ideally, we wouldn't be watching porn or having sex outside the context of marriage. But for now, we have to be pragmatic, one at a time. So with the men
I didn't rejoin the stream.
Oh, well, rejoin the stream. He's just saying less men are having sex nowadays. Which, again, probably has to do with other societal factors, not just porn, like stress, having the time to meet and talk to people when you're done your job at the factory, all that fun shit.
That aren't sexually active and are using porn, you know, they start to put women on this pedestal. They start to regard those types of interactions with women as something out of reach instead of a normal component of life, something that basically everyone does. And a counter argument that I've heard before is, well, you could say the same thing about something like watching football. You're just sitting on your ass watching a...
Who made the football analogy earlier in chat? I feel like somebody made the football analogy early. Or sport analogy, or at least like comparing it to watching sport.
Other man play the sport. That's cucked. It's like, but the difference is that when you're watching football, you aren't deriving pleasure from simulating the act of playing football. You're deriving pleasure from relaxing, rooting for your team, whatever. So it's not cucked just because you're watching another man do it. It's cucked because what you're simulating is what another man is actually doing while watching him do it. And it's also, you know, in an explicitly sexual context. And it lowers your motivation to go out and actually meet and interact with women. So the first reason on principle...
Like, well, for one, there's the cuck theory is like really fucking stupid because it's like, again, you still haven't proven to us why the cuck thing is bad. Who cares that like what if watching porn is cuckoldry? Who gives a shit? I don't give a shit. But then like what was the last thing you said there? I lost my train of thought.
Actually doing while watching him do it. And it's all watching another man do it. It's cucked because what you're simulating is what another man is actually doing while watching him do it. And it's also, in an explicitly sexual context. And it lowers your motivation to go out and actually meet and interact with women. So,
but again, like he doesn't explain this. Why does it lower your motivation to go out and actually meet other people? Again, we've already been over that.
Other people, other women.
Yes.
Those women aren't people.
I'm young and I'm black and my hat's down low.
Thank you, Philosophy, for the sub. Oh, I guess
it was two cars
who gave a gifted sub. Thank you very much. I know. I looked at the one on the actual screen. It has the Philosophy. It's just
yeah.
But thank you, 2 cars. It was very kind of you. The left is starting to get better at fucking it. It's making the right. That's right. We're
this is where he's wrong,
sex.
much like football.
Wait.
Sorry.
What is it about football?
It's Tim's comment. See, this is where he's wrong, much like football. When I watch porn, I'm doing it to just cheer on the athletes. I admire their amazing skills, and I want them to win. Come.
Or I'm sure there's a few people out there that want to fuck those athletes when they're watching them. Guarantee you, there's got to be some people out there that watch those men out on that field and think, I want to have sex with them.
the first reason on principle
No,
would
that is
basically be that
normal.
you're
You
putting
have to give us
women
an argument.
on a
Why is
pedestal
this bad?
and you're subconsciously
bad?
lowering your own self-confidence by telling yourself that I can't do what that guy's doing, so I'll just perpetually be here alone pretending. And I know it's a boomer take, but seriously, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, my guy. If you have a job, if you groom yourself, you have a goal towards which you're actively working, you exercise like twice a week, you're probably better than at least 75% of guys. So just get it together. Your grandfather didn't build this country so that his grandson could fail to carry on his bloodline. Because
Why would anybody watch this and think that they're getting good information? So yes, pull yourself up by your fucking bootstraps. But like, I'm just struggling. Even like, I almost like don't have to say anything. It's pretty self-explanatory for why this fucking is utter horseshit. But like, watching porn doesn't like. No one is. Again, I don't think anyone is watching it going, look at the excellent finesse of these actors in this porn film. I will never be able to replicate this in a real life sexual interaction, so therefore I'm inadequate. I'm almost guarantee you, if people are having those thoughts,
Video
they
like,
must be so
good move.
Yeah. They must be so sexually uneducated that is the problem. The problem isn't the moves. The problem is the lack of education that would teach this person that like those moves are not realistic or being done in the film for camera angle wise and not for pleasure. To be fair, speaking from an aesthetic level, this guy is very effective at making me not want to. Fair enough. I somewhat agree with that take. I believe Cuckball was copyrighted by J.J. Abrams when he was storyboarding The Force Awakens. Fair enough. Oh my god.
It's a reference to BB-8.
BB-88?
BB-8.
Yeah, that's the little ball that rolls. Why is that Cuckball?
The cuckball. Because there were no white men for for white men to relate to on screen in The Force Awakens. So the only white male representation they had was BB-8.
Okay.
And so he was called the cuckball.
Oh my god. The internet has ruined people. It's not porn.
It was a whole thing. It was really bad.
Oh my god.
he's too distracted
Also,
by naked lady, pretty, must
BB-8.
touch pee-pee.
It's a
and
robot.
I know it's not
It's
as
not-
easy as just saying like,
It's not
okay,
gender.
No. I gathered that, but that's the joke.
It's more, Shai said later, they said BB-8 is female, and I was a robot, either of those things.
We're missing this great discourse about pee-pee touching though.
pull yourself up by your bootstraps, my guy. If you have a job, if you groom yourself, you have a goal towards which you're actively working, you exercise like twice a week, you're probably better than at least 75% of guys. So just get it together. Your grandfather didn't build this country so that his grandson could fail to carry on his bloodline because he's too distracted by naked lady, pretty, must touch, pee-pee. And I know it's not as easy as just saying like, okay, I'll quit watching now because, you know, we've got 10% of adults admitting to being addicted to it. You've got 80% of men watching it.
So, fuck these studies, but like, again, I have children. There was nothing about my porn watching behavior that prevented me from quote unquote continuing my grandfather's fucking bloodline, as if that matters at all. And like, let's be real, I did not have children to continue my grandfather's bloodline. I don't even know that my grandfather cared that I continued my grandfather's bloodline. The BB in BB-8 stands for cup size? No, it can't, because BB-8 is clearly the white male representation. We already went over this. I prefer the Coomer Boomers who insist we pull ourselves off by our bootstraps. That's what the bootstraps are there for all along, as tongue toys. I get it. Oh my god.
It at least once a week. It's very widespread and it's very addicting because basically what happens is you've got the same circuits in your brain that are activated with drug or alcohol addiction being activated when you consume pornography. So
this tells you absolutely nothing. Guess what?
I wish we had Elrond here.
I told Elrond.
I wanted to tell us the brains.
Let me see if I could pull up, because Elrond gave me some. I mean, Tim was basically saying it already in the chat. It's not a whole lot. I can't find it, but basically, I mean, you just want to put it like. So this is what is it? It's just generally true that rewarding things becomes less. Yeah, that's the desensitization part. Elrond made a point to me in chat that was basically like, yes, dopamine happens when exciting things happen. Like, that's all that's fucking happening. It's like your brain, guess what, releases dopamine for a lot of things. a lot of things. I hate that fucking pop noise he uses when putting up an image. Whoop. You know, he's cool, he's trendy, he's got all these like graphic stylings, and he creates like memes and stuff. You weren't here for the intro, maybe. We got a Kanye meme and a porn meme. Like, he's hip and he's cool, even though he's like trying to sell conservatism to not just conservatives. This guy is pretty much a fucking out fascist. He's trying to sell fascism to the cool kids, you know? Even though his whole ideology is like stuck in the 1950s. But yeah, dopamine happens all the time. So like you finding out that, hey, guess what? Your brain does things. Cool. Way to go. Way to go.
Rewiring the reward system in your brain, because if you watch porn, you secrete a large amount of dopamine. So over time, what's going to happen is that your brain is going to down-regulate its hormone receptors so that it maintains homeostasis, which means that your natural dopamine levels will be artificially low. And as a result of that, you're going to have to watch more pornography to feel how you would have felt before. And then you'll get more numb. You have to keep watching more and more. The same way with any other addiction.
But what they never explain is how does that might be true for watching pornography, but where does the transference occur between your dopamine being downregulated in terms of porn watching to now having sex with a human being, which are not the same thing. They're different things. They will create different pathways in your brain. They're not the same. This dude's dick confirmed numb. Oh, it's very numb. The main circuit's running through the nucleus accumbens, but like, so what? How do you think reward was processed? Why is the dopamine relevant? No, exactly. Your brain releases dopamine when you're being rewarded for a stimulant. Cool. Same thing probably happens as I'm drinking this Diet Pepsi. Oh my. What have I done to my brain? You start by watching Fast and Furious, and then you just need more and more extreme movies until there's AI cars. No, what we learned is what they're doing is they're making a Jurassic Park Fast and Furious mashup, which is the ultimate extreme high movie-wise.
Yeah, I do actually want to see it.
Or sorry, I should say there's talk. They haven't actually officially said they're going for it. If John Doyle read the study about what happens to rats when you give them a dopamine microinjector in their nucleus accumbens and attached it to a button, it would destroy his mind. Okay.
And so now you're numb, you're more depressed, twice as likely actually to report clinical depression. It's harder for you to find any enjoyment in everyday life, and so you turn back to pornography to get that dopamine rush, even though ironically it's the pornography that is aiding in doing this to you. And as a result of that, your motivation to do things is lowered along with your testosterone levels, because when your dopamine receptors decline, you become numb to everyday pleasures. And it's hard to find motivation to do anything because it's like, what's the point? It's not going to be as fulfilling. Like, sure, you know,
well, if it's not as fulfilling, wouldn't you want to be able to seek more fulfilling things? Like, and again, the testosterone thing. There was my favorite is I don't think we've come up on this on any of the other studies, and I don't know if he's going to get into it here. But there was one study that showed that testosterone levels increased, and it was like a study that was done in China, and it had like a sample size of 20 people, and the idea was like they got people to not masturbate and like measured their testosterone levels, and they increased after refraining from masturbating. So then the question is like, well, for one, they found out that it leveled off anyways, and it like didn't really have that much effect, and it was a slight increase in testosterone. But what a lot of these people take from that is that then clearly stopping masturbating will give you so much testosterone that like you become this hyper masculine super alpha male that'll have like tons of muscles and be fucking like ripped. But it's like a slight amount of like a little bit of testosterone that you get from maybe not masturbating is not going to be like taking testosterone pills or some shit, you know? Those are not the same thing whatsoever. If it is even the case that not masturbating increases testosterone, because like, I don't know, I'll wait for a better study than this one random study that I've seen. They just keep pressing. What's going on about some nucleus accumbens button? We bet he thinks that hunger is a sign of addiction and that he's stronger for not eating much and staying a skinny tweet. No, exactly.
we have civilized society or whatever, but you're still an animal. Your brain is still primitive. And let's face it, guys, from an evolutionary perspective, the reason we're here is to propagate our genetics. That's basically the reason we do everything. You can literally trace back every decision you make as a man to aiding in your pursuit of perpetuating your own genes, anything from working hard at school or to buying a new car. It's all connected. And so...
What the fuck are you?
It's on his face. It's all connected. It's all connected. I purchased this USB stick specifically because I knew it was going to get me laid. I engaged in this USB buying behavior specifically because of my evolutionarily designed propensity to get laid and propagate the species. You did it, John Doyle. You figured out the key to all of life. The key to all of life is the evolutionary drive to procreate. You figured it out.
I think I'm gonna go for a walk in the rain after this is done. Just like need to be cleansed.
I feel like evolution. It's so sad to me because, like, I mean, we don't have to stipulate why here, but like, I clearly love evolution and the theory of evolution and science, and it's like people fucking hate evolution. Like, they just do not understand how it works. Like, even the person earlier in the other video who was like, men have evolved recently to like, it's porn watching has evolved us to be more weaker. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's no way evolution works at that time scale. And just like this, it's like, no, evolution does not just cater to one specific trait and behavior. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. Jody, be real. How many fertile females numbers have you got on that USB? You're not really Actually, what's on this USB is the recording that VNO and I made last night. Well, and it's on my computer now too. It's in both places.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but the point is that when you artificially fulfill that, when you trick your brain into believing that it's fulfilled its purpose, you...
How? So, somehow, when you masturbate to porn, you've tricked your brain that you actually were propagating the species. Again, like how? Why? When your brain could probably figure that out. Could it not? What do these people think about the brain? What if the evolutionist got it by God? Except this guy probably doesn't even believe in evolution, so the fact that he's bringing it up is fucking stupid. Jody, by recording a quality podcast, you're just signaling your high male value. Oh yeah, it's a peacock bullshit. That's it. Sadly, I started making the podcast after I had already procreated, so I would hazard a guess that a lot of these people have read Sex at Dawn after Joe Rogan. Probably. Who wrote Sex at Dawn again? That sounds so familiar. It's gonna bug me now. I'm gonna search it up. Pretty sure I heard about this, but Christopher Ryan. Yeah, no, I've definitely heard of this book, but is it like a pop science evolutionary psychology bullshit? Yeah, okay. Yeah. The authors believe that much of evolutionary psychology has been conducted with a bias regarding human sexuality. Anyways, pop Evo psych stuff. Although Tim in the chat would know more about the Evo psych stuff, so you should maybe ask him about Sex at Dawn and whether it's legitimate or not. Parental investment theory is wrong. Okay, there you go. Because I don't, Tim, like, is your like main field of interest is at least Evo psych adjacent, right? If I'm not mistaken. Can't remember.
Lose your natural masculine drive to go out and make yourself better, to go accomplish things. So it's like, what's the point in putting in all that effort? I can just watch porn and make myself feel good. And so that's what we're seeing happen to the young men in this country, and it's by design. Again, we'll discuss that. But seriously, if you're watching porn on a regular basis right now and you don't believe me that it's addicting,
design.
Try to quit. Go a month without watching it.
Yeah.
So like, somebody's sitting there going, you know what we got to do? We got to engineer titties on video to get men to just sit at home and masturbate so they won't procreate. God. Why would they do this? Why? I mean, it almost fits into his like great replacement narrative bullshit, but at the same time, it's like, if you're just stopping people generally from having kids, why does that matter? And why would they want that? I don't even get it, like, in his like fucked up fascist way of thinking about it.
Jody, it's white genocide.
Yeah, but is the porn? But here's the thing: it's like that would affect all people of all races. Would
No,
it not?
only white people, only white men watch porn. We know this. This is scientifically proven.
Well, I mean, if he said that, that would be interesting. If he's like, it was specifically designed for men, white men, to masturbate and therefore not propagate the white race, then that would be interesting. But he's just saying it's gonna the people who want to control us are forcing us not to procreate. Why? I'm a moral psychologist, so evolutionary approaches are the only game in town. I begrudgingly have to be an evolutionary psychologist. Well, like, I'm not like at all, like, obviously our psychology has something to do with evolution. It's just that some of the pop science people who've talked about evolutionary psychology have ruined it for everyone else. But also partly that people, for one, a lot of people are not good at evolution, but then they're also not good at psychology. And my issue with psychology is everyone is like, I have a psychology, so therefore I can speak as an expert. And then it's like, but we have all this research. Doesn't matter. I had experience. I have anecdote. I therefore say that you are wrong. Sex at Dawn is on pretty shaky empirical ground overall for the sprawling inferences it draws, but in the pop psych domain, it's at least a little refreshing compared to a lot of the conservative Evo psych stuff out there. Interesting. Interesting.
See if you can. No, I don't have to just because you told me to. I know that I'm not addicted. I could stop anytime I wanted to. I just don't want to. Okay, addict. Pull yourself together, man. Have some self-respect. Your purpose...
Like, again, how is that an addiction behavior? You could just be like, why do you want to take away my hobby? I'm really into stamp collecting. And then you're like, don't collect stamps. And I'll be like, why? I enjoy collecting stamps. It's like, all right, addict. Stamp collecting
I mean,
addict. We know that it causes dopamine.
Demonization of addiction as well, right? Like where it's just like
Yeah.
addicts must be dehumanized and seen as less than, and
Yes.
I don't know. I bet this guy drinks coffee, right? Like,
Yeah, what's in the Pioneer mug, bud? Yeah.
oh, unless he is Mormon, in which case he doesn't.
No, he's got the Coca-Cola capitalism thing, although he could be getting decaf.
Is Coca-Cola allowed? There's no way Mormons don't drink pop.
I don't know. I think they might. Just maybe can't drink the caffeine pop. I don't know. I'm not a Mormon.
It's not the caffeine, it's the hot drinks, because that doctrine was developed to stop them from going to like cafes and stuff like that and stop them from interacting with other people.
No, it's definitely
early on, like before Mormons got kicked further west.
Well, that could be true, but it's also the caffeine. They definitely are against all drug use, so they consider caffeine a drug. And are also against that. Yep.
There was some sort of exception to the caffeine one, though.
I don't know. Well, I mean, like you could have like there's like more adherent Mormons than not, like just like any faith, right? But from what I understand from listening to Mormons talk, it's most, at least from the like Brigham Young, head up people, caffeine is not allowed, and so you get a lot of ex-Mormons that joke about having caffeine for the first time. So is cum? Yeah, the Mormons are strictly against cum. They're anti-cum unless it's through a hole in a sheet.
Okay, yeah. So Joseph Smith said he received a revelation from God forbidding Mormons to consume hot drinks, alcohol, tobacco, or too much meat. Over the years, the meaning of hot drinks has come to mean tea and coffee, and then that was extrapolated to mean caffeine. Not specifically caffeine that's banned.
Interesting, because a lot of them take it to be the drug thing. From at least a lot of I've listened to a lot of ex-Mormons talk about it, and they all talk about caffeine.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In 2012, the church released an official statement stating explicitly that caffeinated soda is allowed under church doctrine, which is a very funny thing for a religion to do. Still, many Mormons will not consume caffeinated drinks.
Tim said that's why the Mormons are famously against swallowing cum. It makes them too powerful. True.
In this, you are better than going down the rabbit hole. And that's the next part. We are so sexually overexposed from such a young age. I believe the average age of first exposure to internet porn is like 11. So now we're growing bored of healthy and natural sexuality years before we even become sexually active. So what happens? Well, like all addicts, we search for new highs. Like, why do you think furries are a thing? The people that have sex in cartoon animal costumes? Furries are a thing because of exact...
Thank you, Livy, for the follow. Much appreciated. I mean, this is just the same talking point of like, somehow you're conflating it with like you being bored of porn because you started watching at age 11 means that the novelty of doing it with a partner is now like not a novelty, which does not make sense at all. But I'm gonna back it up just so we can get into his like weird fetish theory.
New highs. Like, why do you think furries are a thing? The people that have sex in cartoon animal costumes? Furries are a thing because of exactly this. And if you talk to these people, it's always the same patterns. It starts online. They're watching porn as a child. They stumble across videos or pictures of these cartoon animals. They're intrigued by this because they're confused and they're overstimulated. So they go down the rabbit hole. And then that...
So how... Walk me through this. So he's going, like, look, when you watch porn at a young age, you become so, like, desensitized to the vanilla porn you start watching that you start to like go for other things because you're searching for novelty. But he's also saying that you're so numb to the porn and the sexual content that you just never will search for the novelty of an actual partner. So somehow searching for novelty will bring you to furries and becoming a furry and being into furry porn, but it will not make you search out like a real person to have sex with. What the fuck are you talking about, John Doyle? And like, even
You think John Doyle used to be a brony or something?
well, was it Nick Fuentes into a brony?
That becomes their identity.
There was internet rumors about Nick Fuente having a sexual relationship with a brony. I don't know how true or false that is.
Interesting.
That being said, this is a stupid fucking idea. Oh, it was with a cat boy. Okay, my bad. Or a Cato boy? Is that a joke about the Cato Institute or something? But then you have to even think, with the amount of porn that exists out there, how many furries are there for this like porn at age 11 to furry pipeline that this fucking guy is talking about? Everyone is born with a discrete budget of being interested in godly, normal sex. The problem is people burning through that quota too quickly online and being forced to wander the wastelands of kink for the rest of their lives. Yeah.
I will just say, I'm amazed at the things that Tim wasn't allowed to say honky, but the amount of other things that are allowed to be typed in chat are just... wow.
Why is it the porn that's bad? Why not ban animal costumes and anthropomorphism instead? Why? Like, why? If for his theory to be true as well, you would think with the amount of porn that everyone's watching, an easy way for him to prove this would be to show like, look at how if you compare to the early 90s to today, viewing of furry pornography and kink is so much higher compared to everything else. But I guarantee you, if you look at the data, vanilla fucking porn is still like top tier, or like lesbians, or like, you know, that kind of stuff is still like the most searched for shit. Guaranteed. Easily disprovable, but he could just spat off this shit because he's John Doyle and he's good.
That becomes their standard. They're so perverted. They are so divorced from normal sexuality that they need colorful cartoon animals to get their rocks off. And a lot of these people would even say that they would identify as a furry before they would identify as gay or straight. That's not genetic. That literally would be impossible. It would literally be impossible to have a fetish for animal costumes embedded into one's genetics. It's nothing more than a fetish that results, like all fetishes, from over-sexualization or, as often the case now, premature sexualization. So
what? Genetics now? Genetics.
Evolution, you know? That's the genes.
Well, like, he's gonna, like, fall into some, like, trad shit. Like, why are you wearing this suit, John Doyle? Why do you think this is the dapper look that you probably think is what's gonna be attractive to the average female or some shit? Like, most attraction is based on context. Societal context. It's not like... Here's a fact that you can learn about evolution. Evolution cares more about like resiliency or like some wiggle room, right? It doesn't want to like put it down that like here is the only thing that is going to make people sexually interested. We're going to just plug that in so that they find that specific thing in a mate, and that's the thing that gets them going. And like, because here's the thing is that's going to limit your mating opportunities, right? It's going to narrow it down to a tiny slice. So instead, evolution would likely create an abundance of opportunity, some space within the wiggle room of like your sexual options, and create a diversity such that you're not so narrowly limited and you might end up procreating, right? That is way more likely in an evolutionary scenario, which means that you're going to create resiliency. So like things like context and style and taste and other things are going to factor into this, which are going to be environmentally shaped rather than genetically shaped. I have a whole series of lectures on the biological cultural coevolution of mate quality signals and how trash the notion that we have built-in genetic templates for attractiveness. Exactly. I mean, you have the language because you continued to study this and I did not. But like it's the same, like, yeah, what Tim said. A way more succinct way of saying the exact same fucking thing I just said. like I feel there was a great book, I should say it. One of the people who was going to be, I wanted to be my thesis supervisor, was Jillian Barker, and she wrote a great book called Beyond Biofatalism, and it was arguing against this kind of like pop Evo psych from like Steven Pinker and shit like this, that you have like a gene for this kind of like psychological propensity, and it's like nothing in evolution is so like one to one like that. There's like you want to create some I keep going back to the word resiliency, but I don't feel like that's the word that I want to use. But like there's like some room for it to move, right? Like some space within the world that it can move. It's not as rigid or concrete that a lot of like pop Evo people want to try to like all bring it down to. Like it's some sort of essence. There's a gene. There's a single thing that we can point to. Like no, you want redundancy. Redundancy, I think is the word I was looking for. There we go. Sitting in a Twitch chat talking about right-wing semen retention advocates. At least a chance to use my PhD.
Glad we could help, Tim. Glad we could be of service.
I dropped out of my PhD to do this, so I don't know who's better there.
If we didn't have this widespread,
Nothing but
unlimited
respect
access
for our
to pornography, I
troops.
guarantee
Yeah.
you there would be no furries. I guarantee you that if instead of sitting inside watching porn, these people were out riding bikes, playing kickball, their sexuality would have developed normally. But because they were perverted at a young age by sexual overexposure, this is what happened. So,
You know, like what?
Bisexual?
So it's like if kids were out there playing kickball instead of watching porn, we would have absolutely no furries. What? And I guarantee you, fetishists, like I don't just guarantee you, there's fucking evidence out there. Fetishes exist long before there existed high quality free porn on the internet. Long before. Kink, BDSM, people want to be tied up, whipped, people who like feet, all that kind of, all these like non-normative sexual impulses have existed long before the invention of video pornography. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Believe it or not, the administrators try to discourage me from talking about manosphere nonsense in my courses. A real shame. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that a lot. I almost convinced my professors that we need to talk about this shit because I had one student bring up Sargon of Akkad in class, and that really got me freaked the fuck out. You know, knowing that like 17-year-olds in my classroom were fucking watching far-right fascist shit online and then bringing it into my classroom was a little worrying.
you know, and that's exactly what pornography does, because as you pursue your next dopamine hit, you find that you need to start watching more obscure pornography to get off. You're now bored by what you were watching 6 months ago. Now you need something with more shock value. You're literally rewiring your brain to become aroused by certain types of scenarios, certain types of images, and then that becomes the standard. So now when you're in an actual sexual situation with a woman, you find that you're less aroused, and that's exactly what happens. Porn is clinically shown to be the cause of less sex and also of less satisfying sex, and that in part has an effect on the relationships that you have with women, which...
So none of those studies are true, but like I will say, I'm just trying to like parse this out. No sex, like watching porn does... I almost like forget what he just fucking said, guys. I got lost in the last.
But because they were perverted at a young age by sexual overexposure, this is what happened. So, you know, and that's exactly what pornography does, because as you pursue your next dopamine hit, you find that you need to start watching more.
Oh yeah. So my like porn habits generally, but like I can use my own anecdote, have not like I've not gone like I need a new stimulation. Like my porn use has remained kind of consistent. I haven't needed to, I haven't been like, I am so bored that what I need is furry sex now. Like I need to kick it up to like the next level, you know? It's like even some people, like I guarantee you there's people out there who fucking love horror movies. And it's not like, you know, they go, well, I've watched now 10 horror films. I've become numb to them. I'm now no longer interested in horror films. I now need to go to like gore films or something. Like that's just not how this fucking works. You know? It's just amazing how much they just say this. When it's like no evidence that this is the case. Or else people would just be bored of all the normal fucking boring shit that we all do all the time. And boring here just in the milquetoast vanilla variety of people like are people bored of reading. Like, someone who's into reading books does not get bored of continuing to read books. Like, I don't understand what the fucking logic
The
is.
thing is, like, on that note, if you look at it like in comparison to any other media, the opposite is happening in every form of media. It's not like, people are getting bored of the same simple and like stupid story being repeated endlessly with pretty lights and whatever. And then like are seeking out, or the market then is like, people are bored of this, we need to like produce more complex things. Instead we have the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe or whatever else, where it's just kind of like derivative and the same
Because they're like,
story,
this sells.
and
Let's just keep selling it.
yeah, exactly. And like we're seeing a very obvious like simplification and like decrease in the level of like complexity and like adding something new and exciting or interesting. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess I can't really say if that is happening or not in porn, but I don't know, like the popularity of something like OnlyFans in comparison to something like more like paid, I don't know, like BDSM stuff could be seen as something almost akin to that, where it's like it's more of a focus on kind of human relations and like the person, I guess, and like a personality, rather than like some abstract but very like, I don't know, I get like complicated and more like in depth. I don't know how to
Well, I mean, if we're just
describe that, but like,
if we're gonna just talk about like consumption of video or arts or some kind of like medium, like, it would be one thing if all you had was one porn video. You know what I mean? Just one scene. You just have one pornographic scene, and that is the only one you have, and that's the one you're constantly masturbating to. I can understand why that would be boring. But like, there's variety within pornography. There's different actors. There's different content, different scenarios, different scenes. And this can all be within the vanilla dynamic, right? And even then, just like, people have their favorite movies. People probably have their favorite porno that like, maybe they watched it 10 years ago, but they're going to come back to it or something like this, right? I'm sure those kind of behaviors exist then. But like in his mind, it's like novelty exists on such a wide spectrum. It's like, I don't know, watching this actress have sex it's so little novelty to watch a new actress have sex, when I'm like, I don't know, there could be tons of novelty there. That's a different person. They behave differently. That's new. And I'm sure like that's why you don't see, as I explained earlier, you don't see this wide stretch that all of a sudden kink is everywhere on these porn sites or something to such an extent and so overly watched. You would have that information if it exists, but you don't. All you have is this made up belief that somehow when you're watching pornography, you're going to get so bored that you end up into like furry porn. Show me another medium where that makes sense, where people get bored. Like I've seen There Will Be Blood a ton of times, or 12 Monkeys as an older movie. I've watched 12 Monkeys gotta be close to 50 times in my life, and I'm still not bored when I watch it. Maybe if I watched it like constantly back to back, but it's a good fucking film. Of course I'm gonna go back to it. Like, just what world does this person live in? I just don't understand it.
Or obscure pornography to get off. You're now bored by what you were watching 6 months ago. Now you need something with more shock value. You're literally rewiring your brain to become aroused by certain types of scenarios.
The Snyder Cut is actually a circumcision film, apparently. An adult circumcision film. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The entire popularity of the step sibling porn trend is that the users wanted want to keep watching exactly the same kinds of performers in the same kinds of scenes they always did, but just want slightly different social context but 4 minutes at the beginning. And 5 years from now, it'll be some other dressing up of the same thing. I mean, but that's why you got like the plumbers, you got the pizza delivery. Like, I mean, this is a trend that's been ongoing. You have so many different variations of the same vanilla sex to give some new like novelty to it.
Scenarios, certain types of images, and then that becomes the standard. So now when you're in an actual sexual situation with a woman, you find that you're less aroused, and that's exactly what happens. Porn is clinically shown to be the cause of less sex.
It's a review, but is internet pornography causing sexual dysfunctions? Question mark. That makes me wonder if they have a definitive answer or not. Probably not. If they had a definitive answer, my guess is this would be internet pornography causes sexual dysfunctions. A review with clinical report. And I'll let you know here. I'll weigh in here. Gary Wilson, the person, so you can't see it on your screen. One of the authors of this paper is a Gary Wilson, and he's one of the top authors. He's a pseudoscientist piece of shit who died recently, so that's fun. But he's the one who worked with Philip Zimbardo that I talked with before. So he's just quoting out and out pseudoscience here. So fun.
Sex, and also of less satisfying sex, and that in part has an effect on the relationships that you have with women, which is supposed to be the goal, right? Like, find a woman, build a family. That's the whole point. And women have generally been shown to have strong negative feelings towards their partner consuming pornography, and they're entirely justified. Frankly, our culture is now telling women that they just have to accept this. It's just what men do. Just get over it. And it's like, no, actually, I think we need to hold men to a higher standard. I think if
so, this weird holding men to a higher standard thing. But actually, Marty Klein, like I refer to his research again, but like Marty Klein points out that like part of one of the issues that goes on here is that a lot of the sex addiction or pornography addiction research that comes out is usually driven by women who are upset with their husband's proclivity to want to watch pornography. And so then you go, okay, well, is that a problem with the pornography watching? Or is this a problem with the relationship dynamic where one person wants to do a behavior and the other person wants to have their partner not do that behavior? Now, some people coach it in like, maybe she shouldn't be controlling what he wants to do privately with his own body. And like, I kind of side with that argument. But like, maybe at the same time, it's like, if your partner doesn't like you doing this, maybe don't find a partner that you have to hide this behavior with, right? Because now you're hiding shit from your spouse, and those are the things that are going to cause some sort of like relationship problems. It has nothing to do with the watching of the porn. It has to do with the lack of communication and the like not having an open discussion in your relationship about the things that you like to do, such that and most of that comes from a religious background. So here's the other thing: is most of the other scholars, probably like all the scholars that he links to, most of them all seem to have degrees from Brigham Young University. Mormons, where they think sex is bad, so they're going to do all these studies showing how like watching porn is bad, it's all bad for you, and therefore women are justified when they then go to their therapist and say that my husband's a sex addict, he won't stop watching porn, and I know that he's addicted to it because like that is bad stuff, and I'm not approving of it because of the Lord and all that fun stuff. So it's usually driven through religion, this whole angle of it. Mormons actually make propaganda to try to get teen Mormons to spy and snitch on their friends for masturbating. Yeah. Yep. Brigham Young is just creating a whole bunch of sex negative therapists that then created the term sex addiction, even though most therapists don't agree that it's a thing. Isn't that fun?
if a man is in a committed relationship with a woman and he is actively lusting after other women, he's actively pleasuring himself to other women, hell yes, she should be upset about it. And that's why pornography addiction causes so many problems in relationships. I don't know, I don't care if we've had 50 years of feminist theory that says like, no, watching porn with your husband's actually empowering. That's not going to change the fact that women have been biologically programmed through millions of years of cognitive evolution to become jealous and insecure when their partner shares his attention with other women.
Oof.
Yep. Women evolved to be jealous. Then be jealous because of evolution. Here's what you got to do. Find you a woman who watches porn and you're all good. Then you don't have to worry about all this bullshit.
I don't know if I can make it through 9 more minutes of this, I gotta say.
we're almost done anyway, so let's plow through. I mean, what do you say to that other than like I already covered the evolution shit, but now it's just like
Yeah.
sexist evolution shit. Yeah.
Nothing will ever change that. Watching porn means that you're twice as likely to get divorced. 56% of all divorce cases involve one partner's use of pornography. You know, it makes you less interested in sex with your wife. It decreases the quality of that sex. And for what? Like for what? What are you even doing? What positive tasks are you accomplishing through your pursuit of lust? And actually, there's even a problem with the way I'm framing this thing, because now, you know, I'm sort of operating under this assumption that the goal is sexual relationships with women. But now there are guys now who not only they're having less sex, they're having no sex, and they're actually saying that they would prefer to just watch pornography than to have actual sex with actual women. That's how warped their sexual desires have become. They would literally rather simulate by themselves the act of having sex with a woman instead of actually having sex with a woman. It's like, bro, stop. You're better than that. And people are always like, oh, you care so much about what women want. You're going to let them walk all over you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, that's really not the case. I don't believe that I've said that. It's honestly more because I care about what I want. And what I want is to be in a committed relationship with a woman. Let's say we're married. We got a couple kids. I want to be in this relationship and I would like to be happy. What is going to make that relationship unhappy is if I am consuming pornography and my wife is upset with me. Now, I can maintain that she is being unreasonable. She should just get over it, whatever. But here's the thing. Sure, it might be unreasonable, but it's literally programmed into her brain. You want her to get over it, but she seriously does not possess.
So that was a little bit more stronger of a claim. That she absolutely cannot actually get over it, because it's genetically programmed in her brain to be against your porn watching behavior. What? What? Programmed in your brain. What positive goal are you pursuing with your pursuit of lust? Sir, it's called busting. As the Ghostbusters teach, it makes you feel good. No, busted open to feel good. But again, like a lot of this is like an appeal to some sort of emotion. Like, you're bad for doing this. And then it's like, well, why are we bad for doing it? If someone just wants to watch porn and never be in a committed relationship, that's what they want to do. Why does that matter? Let them do that. Let them have fun. If that's their idea of fun, why are you trying to police other people's ideas of fun, you know?
Possess the capacity to get over it. It's wired into her brain at the most basic level. So given that, who's really being unreasonable? Your wife, who through millions of years of cognitive evolution has been genetically predisposed to jealousy and insecurity, or you, who just can't stop?
So like, wait, who's being more unreasonable? So he's saying you're being unreasonable for trying to change your wife because you can't change your wife. She's been genetically programmed. But by definition, merely doing what you're genetically programmed to do is not reason. It's like by definition, that's instinct. It's not reason. I don't know what he's trying to say here. So neither of you are reasonable? It's not a, I don't know.
Stop himself to save his life from jerking off to a screen that you're actually going to ask your wife to rewire her own neurochemistry. It's like, really, my guy? She's never going to get over it. And it's not because she's refusing to. It's because she literally cannot. So be a man. Take control of your desires. I used to kind of roll my eyes.
Well, like, here's the number one easiest way to disprove what he's saying here. The existence of women who are not bothered by their partners watching pornography. Gotcha. He has to postulate both sides of the claim. Porn is bad because it's an inadequate simulation of your reason for being fucking women. But also, if you say you prefer porn over fucking women, that's also a problem because you're supposed to want the other thing. Yeah. Man, neurochemistry means nothing. Take control of your desires. In a way, it is hyper sexism because all the lack of control is on the woman's side of this argument. She is completely unreasonable and just driven by her genetic predispositions, and the man is the reasonable one who can somehow fucking work through this shit. Super fucking toxic.
Eyes at the argument that's like, oh, but that's someone's daughter, because it's like no one who's doing porn has a parent out there that's really concerned about what their daughter's doing, frankly. But I don't know. It's like you get older, it makes you think a little bit. You're like, wow, that woman, the giver of life, the reason that we're all here, and the sacred act through which we've all been conceived is being degraded. I think that's gross. I think if you don't see a problem with that, you need to seriously consider the implications of degrading the value of sex in society, which is something that we've discussed before. But I think it was Pope John Paul II who said...
So maybe he is Catholic.
Wait, we're getting Pope language.
But like again, he said these were going to be secular arguments, and now we're at sacredness and Pope John Paul. It's like you haven't made it one secular argument in all of this, except for like maybe your weird porn addiction arguments that were not very good. We think he is.
I think my boy's a Catholic.
Maybe.
Said this, like the problem with porn isn't that it shows too much, it's that it shows too little, and that's absolutely correct. If you are reducing the relationship between a man and a woman to this
Wait, yes, exact. Like, there's an element here that's true, but like, fuck what the Pope is like trying to insinuate here. But what the Pope is also saying here is that yes, pornography is missing the intimacy that's involved in having sex with another partner, which is why the novelty theory that you spent most of the fucking video on does not ring true. Because there is a novelty to actually being with a partner that does not exist within the pornography. So thank you, Pope John Paul, for coming in with the correct, though probably meant it in a different way, argument.
This relationship that exists purely through lust, that's going to have catastrophic consequences on the society. Because the family, the relationship between a man and a woman, is the backbone of society. And when you degrade that, the society suffers, as we've seen through divorce rates, single motherhood rates, which of course increase the likelihood of poverty, crime, mental illness, all sorts of hardships. So again, we really need to think about the implications of treating this sort of content as normal. But even
so, this is like the Charles Murray theory of like, you know, families are degrading and breaking down and like all that bullshit. So that's fun to know. But like again, families aren't degrading and like. All the funny thing is like all these arguments of like the divorce rate increasing, the divorce rate has actually been in decline recently. Like it peaked I think in the 90s and has since been declining. Again, you want sorry, go on.
If he's Catholic, the divorce rate existing is bad.
Yeah.
So
Fair. I mean, but the people make this argument, but it's like you want to create less divorce? Go teach people how to be better communicators with their partner. And one aspect of communicating with partner is not hiding your porn addiction. Or not porn addiction. I've been listening to this for almost 3 hours now. The point is, communicate your porn watching behavior with your partners. That's it. You want it to not be a contentious issue in your relationship? Talk about it with your spouse. Communicate with them. Have a communication with your partner. Because that's the part of having a partner, communication. Don't just assume that your wife is a genetic machine that has no reason, like this asshole. That is the wrong way of talking with your partner.
even with the industry itself, there's an undeniable link between the pornography industry and the sex trafficking industry. Police in my state of Michigan found that pornography is used or imitated in over 40% of sex crimes. The industry is filled with STDs, mental illness, targeting children, violence, exploitation. It's just a very dark, depraved industry, like as we would expect, but still. And it trickles down into child porn too. These mainstream websites get in trouble all the time because somehow, some way, videos of minors keep popping up. It's totally disgusting. But even all that aside, the most compelling reason I think to be against pornography is because it is a weapon that is used to control you.
So let's be clear here. He just rattled off a few good points about the existence of like child pornography on these platforms and all this stuff. And that is a real concern. And I don't, some of the other stuff he said, I think he's overplaying. Like, for one, like, using the police data on this thing is probably not good, especially police and how they refer to sex workers and stuff like this. Probably not a good source. But, like, all that being said, like, okay, yeah, child pornography existing on some of these other websites. And there's been recent changes to that to try to stop it, and like whether they're good or bad or all that fun shit is another conversation. But the point is okay, that's bad. But he goes, even child pornography existing on these porn sites is not as bad as the fact that there's some of them out there that are creating this stuff to control it. That is the worst thing, apparently.
And are we about to get into that part then?
I can't remember.
Do you think it's a coincidence that no one talks about the unprecedented and unlimited access that our society has to pornography? Do you think it's a coincidence that our media promotes hardcore and softcore pornography in our music, on our TV shows, in our movies? Do you think it's a coincidence that our kids are learning in school that hookup culture is normal and in fact it's actually empowering? It's not.
So these three things here are kind of weird. The like the normalization of like sexy people in media. I'm not sure how that is going to control us, but okay. Hookup culture is definitely not being normalized. I don't know what he's talking about. But also, like, why are people not talking about sex? I'll tell you why people are not talking about sex. It's the guilt and the shame and the awkwardness that a lot of people feel around sexual topics. That's the reason why people don't. Because like when people like, I mean, we've told a few jokes here, but a lot of people would blush and be like, you know, when I was doing the simulation and holding my hand out, and people would be like, oh, and blush. Like that's why people don't talk about sex. You need to talk about sex. Communicating about sex is important, but it's not a conspiracy. That's the reason why we don't talk about it, because we're awkward people and get embarrassed about what our bodies do. But why is it a coincidence that there's like titties in music videos? No, there's no coincidence because people like looking at titties. I don't know. What do you want, John Doyle? It's not a conspiracy. People like titties.
It's a plan to control you, because
What
if
else
you
did I
have
say?
no control over your sexual desire, what will happen, and what does happen, as we've discussed, is it will harm the family. It will harm your family,
they
and on a
wanna
broader
harm the
scale, on a
family.
societal scale, it will harm the family. And so
Apples.
why do they want to harm the family? Well, because as Karl Marx said,
What is
if
this?
you can abolish the family, you can make people completely dependent. If you can abolish and dismantle the family structure, you can make people dependent on the state. That's the first.
What?
Apples. Thanks for the raid. Much kindness. Catboys are cool. Catboys are in fact cool. We learned actually that porn is a gateway to being attracted to catboys. This is something that we did learn in this video, apparently. According to Mr. Fascist John Doyle here, porn is a gateway to catboys. Or furries, generally. I think he mostly was talking about furries. But anyways, Vienno, you want to respond to that Marx comment?
Karl Marx, famous for wanting to empower the state at the expense of
The family.
humans.
Yeah. No, Karl Marx famously was like, we have we have nothing to lose but our families.
There's no way that he read any. Like, what?
No, I mean he hasn't read Marx.
Is he talking about the Holy Family? Like, I'm trying to figure out what fucking, like, thing he's claiming to have read here, and it's just like,
I think there isn't there a bit in the Communist Manifesto that has to do with the family. I can't remember the
Yeah,
exact
like-
verbiage of it, but like I don't recall it being about like wanting to destroy the family. I think it was about like how the bonds of the family shouldn't be like their own like mini states with like state authority on you, right? Like it had more to do with like
Yeah,
power
like-
hierarchies than it did about wanting to just whole hog get rid of families.
I mean, I think it's kind of like a question of getting rid of the families as such, like, because I don't think you can separate the family, especially nowadays, well, post-Marx, from, like, saying, like, the hierarchies inherent within. But, like, it's more just, like, the idea of them then making individuals dependent on the state as, like, anything that Marx wanted, living first in fucking, like, monarchist Prussia,
Yeah.
that he was like, oh, you know what the state needs is more control over everything that people like. Like,
No, I mean he's probably
I don't know.
he's probably
It's-
sneaking in some what's that kid? What? Oh, well, I forgot. The John Birch Society talking points about Russia is what he's probably spewing here. Is my guess that it's some sort of like
Yeah, I don't
like
know. It's
appeal to like what Marx always wanted was the state apparatus that we all go to, the destroying of the. I mean, but really, what it is, there is an element of what you were saying earlier with the Great Replacement theory, in that like what's going on here is this idea that like the them out there, the people who want to control us, these mysterious communists in control of all media, apparently, they're here to make sure that we don't have
Good night, Shy.
families. Yes, good night, Shy. Also, thanks to all the viewers that showed up. If you're confused about what we're talking about, every Wednesday I sort of like I watch some content that's vaguely related to Rebel News, which is a Canadian fascist group that I cover on my podcast. And so, but on Wednesday I do stuff that's tangentially related. So John Doyle had appeared on Rebel Media's show, and so I was like, okay, let's see what John Doyle's material's like. And on the video that we watched last week, he brought up his like anti-pornography stance, which led us into speculating about NoFap and the NoFap movement, and because of some of the stuff that he brought up there. And so what we decided to do for today's show was watch a bunch of NoFap content, and then we're ending again on John Doyle. And so what we've learned is that they believe some weird stuff about serotonin, or dopamine, sorry. That somehow you get addicted to pornography because of your dopamine pathways, and therefore you lose the novelty to want to seek out like real partners or something, which just doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. But we've kind of already like gone over that, but that's kind of where we're at. We're almost near the end of this video. And so far what we've learned from John Doyle is that women are completely incapable of reason. I think is the main takeaway we've learned, because John Doyle is a fucking asshole. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. And we just heard from him here that like there's a secret cabal out there that are trying to control us by sexualizing, creating sexy material in our mass media in order to prevent us from having families, is what we've learned. But he hasn't expanded on that whatsoever.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get to it in the last, I doubt it, the last 6 minutes or 5 minutes.
First part. The second part is that in our human pursuit of virtue and truth, we basically have a diametric that dictates that we can either conform truth to desire or desire to truth. And there are varying degrees throughout the spectrum, but you know, the rules of the extremes are constant. We can either conform truth to desire or desire to truth. And what that means is that if you can make people a slave to their desires, and of course sexual desire being the most powerful, you can control the truth, which means that you can control them and you can convince them of anything, because the only way that you can know the truth is if you have no subjective interests in your pursuit of the truth. If you have total control over your desires, that is the only way that you can truly know the truth. If you don't have total control over your desires, your proclivity will be towards whatever aids you in satisfying that desire, which ultimately will distort the truth.
Have you followed any of that? Is he basically talking
I
about
mean,
hedonism? That like if you...
I don't...
But what does that have to do with the truth?
Yeah. But also just like if people are following sexual desire, which is the strongest desire. Actually, I think like hunger, sleep, I think there might be a couple ones above there, you know, like.
Well, I mean, but this
like
gets
that's how
back
you
to
can
his whole
control
idea.
people, and
His whole idea that the replication is the most important, like, evolved function, right? Because without it, you wouldn't replicate it. But it's like, again, as you pointed out right here, it's like if you don't eat, you're also not going to be able to have sex and replicate and all that fun stuff. Which is why, like, saying there's the one single thing, the one important evolutionary drive is so stupid, because there's a lot of drives that we have to keep us alive in order to replicate, I guess. But not that is the proper way of being, as he's like trying to frame it. Like, we also created birth control because maybe we as humans with brains can go, hey, replication, maybe I don't want to do that. But yeah, he's just basically like, I don't understand this notion of truth here. It's pure Buddhism. You see, Jody, if you desire anything, your pursuit of those desires will distort the pursuit of truth. Only someone who is freed from all desires can fully perceive what is true. There's a name for what he's describing. It's post-nut clarity. I guess. But like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, is he trying to argue that he never does anything based on desire? Is he honestly like trying to argue that there's just nothing that he does that has anything to do with desire? Because in order to like obtain truth, you need to become some sort of like Byzantine monk and just like remove all stimulation and sensation.
nothing but desire for Christ's everlasting love.
If you NoFap for a month, you start seeing the source code for reality. Some of us are only post-nut for the moments after coming, but he's advocating for a post-nut society akin to a post-scarcity society. Asceticism is the new punk rock. I mean, I guess. You know, most people are into like meditation and shit. Why do you need NoFap? Just meditate.
John
That's why
Doyle
they're
wants to
pushing
make
it.
children of men real.
None of this makes any fucking sense.
Yeah.
They want you addicted to it, and that's why I want it banned. I want it gone. That's right. I know what you're thinking. But John, the liberals, they want to ban stuff. I don't care. Ban it. Get it out of here. Oh, but John, you can never ban something. It just creates a black market. Sure. But you have to understand the lengths to which people will go to access something are normally distributed. So if we regulate pornography in the same class that we regulate child pornography, you won't be able to just access it in the blink of an eye. And if you don't recognize the difference between pulling out your phone and using Google to find it versus having to venture into the bowels of the dark web and risk prosecution, I don't know what to tell you. You know, if you think that people will continue to access it at the same level as they do now, you're delusional. And even if the dent was only a 50% decrease, even though it'd likely be like a 98% decrease, that's good enough for me, you know? Well, but John, but that's the same thing the libtards say when they want to take away the guns. It's like, yeah, except you have a right to bear arms. You don't have a right to pornography access. It's nothing more than filmed prostitution. It's prematurely sexualizing our kids. The effects, you know, we know what the effects of that are. Increased likelihood of substance abuse, depression, other mental health things, you know, all that good stuff. Porn's not
are all
protected by the
things
Bill
that
of
I
Rights.
thought
It's not
of,
free
so, by the
speech.
way.
Miller versus California. I mean, I don't even know what other arguments you could make. Like, oh, well, John, it's a slippery slope. It's like, oh, yeah, dude, I hope the government doesn't find a way to do something worse than addict all the men in this country to pornography that makes them impotent, depressed, controllable zombies with no motivation. Like, oh.
So I want to pause here to just point out, and I think that whole segment there is very important to just sit with, because a lot of people, I feel, go down these like alt-right pathways and libertarian pathways to then vote for people like Donald Trump with the idea that somehow these people aren't going to like regulate, that they're for free markets, that the left is the ones that want to cancel things and all this fun shit, right? But then what he's really saying here is he's giving up the game away, which is that the Republicans have never been against legislating sexuality, legislating morality, telling you what the fuck to do with your sexual life. He wants to regulate it, and he's being open and honest about it. And so for all you fucking like libertarians on the fence that are just like, oh, I'll vote for Republican because they're against the cancel culture. They're going to take away shit from you. Remember that always. And now with my rant over, Vienna, what were you chuckling about?
Oh, I was laughing at Capway Idiot saying, pretty sure beating my schlong isn't the reason I'm hollow inside. And it's like, yes, that's capitalism.
Yeah.
That's what's doing that to you. But
you can
yeah,
beat the schlong to feel okay temporarily.
he's making some real assumptions about how like internet censorship works also. Like, yeah, but VPNs exist. Like, you think the UN is going to
No, I think he thinks that
ban
it's just
it?
going to
Like,
create
what?
some sort of like deterrence, right? So it can be relegated to like the deep web, but then it's like, I think he makes that point here.
Please, no, don't do
Yeah,
that.
but it's kind of
That's
like,
the other
look
thing.
at Saudi, look at like other places where it's banned. Everybody still accesses it fine. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it.
America is the world.
I'm
Yeah, you're
absolutely
right.
Sorry, what was that?
I said America is the world because Livy typed that in
Yeah.
chat, and of course,
Yeah.
I forgot. My bad.
Well, he wants to push America on everyone else.
Going to say this. Conservatives need to snap out of this mindset of like, every time the government does something, it's bad. Government. In almost all cases, I completely agree. Don't get me wrong. But we tend to just default to that frame of thinking without even examining the idea on an individual scale. It's like, oh, it requires government. It must be bad. And if you're like, well, that's the good
government
thing
is
about
only good
freedom.
when it's
You don't like it,
regulating
don't
your
use it.
sexuality.
Really? Is that what this is, bro? Freedom? Your freedom to make yourself a slave? Yeah, very epic. Libertarians be like, everyone in this country is addicted to porn and opiates, but it's okay because it was their choice. Yeah, big disagree. I care about me and I care about you. I care about the future of the country. I care about the fabric of our society. So I want porn gone. I want it banned. I couldn't care less if you think that you should have a right to decide for yourself because that's how this works. I don't care. In almost all cases, I'd probably...
See, And this is what you can't mistake. Libertarians think that they can live in this world where they can be friends with these conservatives because they're against government regulation. But what this asshole is probably against government regulation for is against them regulating like oil fields and shit like this. But he's going to be completely fucking fine with the government telling you what you can do with your sexual partners or what you can watch on TV. He wants to censor all your shit and he wants to do it. And yet he's the same one. The video that we watched last week was about cancel culture and the censoring of like children cartoons and stuff like this. And here he is promoting censorship and bullshit, which is really the end game for these assholes. They just don't.
Yeah.
The reason why they're against cancel culture is not because canceling is itself bad. They just want to cancel the things that they want canceled. That's the issue.
He's just very mask off about the fascism. Like,
But that's most conservatives. People got to understand this. The like libertarians that are just loud on the internet, they're a very rare fucking breed. Most conservatives are like this asshole right here. Because I bet you your Aunt Betsy, who's like really into conservatism, probably doesn't read a lot of libertarian theory, and will probably agree with everything that's coming out of John Doyle's mouth here.
Probably agree. However, do you think 11-year-old children, remember the average age that children are being exposed to pornography is 11 years old? Do you think that when they're exposed to it, they're really weighing all the pros and cons? They're making an informed decision? No, because they can't. Because it's capitalizing on the most primitive instinct that we possess with intent to control us and enslave us. It's prematurely sexualizing our kids. It's perverting the society, and I want it gone because all that matters is families. That's it. That's all that matters. Young.
It's perverting society because all that matters is family. There you have it. There you have it.
good night, Nick.
Good night, Nick. Thank you for tuning in. It must be. It's probably super late over there too. But who's doing the enslaving?
Yeah, 4 a.m.
I do like Tukar's
Yeah.
point here, which is like, he was talking about like how the metaphorical them, the vague sense of the them controlling you through like sexual images on TV. Yet he's the one who wants to be like censoring all the things that you can do because he wants to make sure that everyone is doing his preferred lifestyle, which is this heteronormative family that he's put up in this corner. And if you're not doing this, you're banned from his society.
He has been less, like, he's been a lot more subtle about the, triple parentheses them
Yeah.
in this one compared to the one that we watched last week. Like, this one has been much less, like,
Themy?
it's still just, it's amazing, like, how still, like, mask off, fascisy it is, but, like, it's still, like, it's still somehow more subtle than last week. Like,
It's just amazing to me that, like, this is a pattern in at least the videos that we've watched, that there is this amorphous they or them that has control over things. But has he ever described what that is or why they want to do it? And it almost makes me want to watch his content for a moment where he actually, like, breaks the fourth wall and is like, here's who the them are, and here's what specifically, why they're doing this, why they want to control us in this way. He doesn't explain any of that. Other than it's some Marxist.
he knows he couldn't. He knows
Which
he
leads
couldn't
me-
get away with it on YouTube. Eventually, he'll do something bad enough to get him kicked off of YouTube. When he goes to Rumble, boom, it'll just be instantly like.
Yeah. I don't know, but this gets into the whole, like, is it like Bircherism, anti-communism stuff, or is it the protocols, or is it a mixture of the two? I don't know.
I think it's generally a mixture. Like, I don't think any of it's pure.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever like purely delineated before, like, internet modern right wing bullshit. This is just like, yeah, it's all an amalgam of what came before.
Yeah. All right, let's finish it off.
Young people who have been exposed to pornography are more likely to have multiple lifetime sexual partners, more likely to have had more than one sexual partner in the last 3 months, more likely to have had used alcohol or other substances at their last sexual encounter, more likely to have scored higher on a sexual permissiveness test, I think it's called. They're more likely to have risky forms of sex, more likely to have. Actually, they're more likely to be sexual offenders too. There's that. And so, for the all-purpose cop-out of, all this shows is correlation. Correlation does not equal causation. Yeah, I also went to the first day of high school stats class, buddy. But, you could say the same thing about throwing a rock and watching its geographic location change. No reasonable person would doubt that there was a connection between watching sex acts and trying out what one sees. In other words, what would we expect from someone that exposes themselves to high levels of pornography? Well,
but he never made that connection. Like, it's not... Like, you'd have to, again, show the evidence that that kind of sexual behavior is increasing. I hate to say it, most people are still a little bit vanilla.
I don't know, reason would suggest that they'd probably be more likely to engage in these types of sexual behavior, more likely to, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's what the data shows? Oh, well, but correlation does not equal causation. It's like, use your brain, buddy. Break the conditioning. Develop the internal monologue. Quit watching porn. Download anti-porn software on your devices. Download an app to track your progress. Do what you need to do. But most importantly, recognize that what you're up against isn't just a video of two people, let's say two, but fornicating. It's more significant than that. It's a weapon. Pornography is a weapon that is attacking you and our country, and so you should treat it as such. Hey guys, if you like this,
it's a weapon. It's attacking our country. 200,000 people watched the fucking video. Oh my god. Yeah, John Doyle's the worst. But I wonder what the relationship is between a John Doyle and those other people we watched. Because it's clear there's like some connective tissue. They're all like appealing to the same research. But it's clear that John Doyle is using it to like feed into his like far more fascistic ideology. Where some of the other people we watched, it was more about production in a capital sense. In like, like the porn addiction and stuff was like ruining you from doing what like you're supposed to do within a capitalist society or some shit like this, But his is definitely a lot more scary.
Yeah.
Hello, my rebels. Hello, my rebels. I'm a good boy. I'm a weirdo.